There's a moment that arrives for a lot of people, and it doesn't come with a warning. It doesn't show up as a breakdown or a dramatic scene. It's quieter than that. You're just going about your life, doing the things you've always done, and somewhere in the middle of an ordinary day, a question surfaces. Is this all there is? And once you hear it, you can't unhear it. Most people call what follows a midlife crisis. They picture someone buying a sports car, quitting their job, making reckless choices. And sure, sometimes that happens. But for the majority of people going through this, the experience is something much harder to name. It's not chaos. It's more like a slow, quiet unraveling. The life you spent years building starts to feel like it belongs to someone else. The goals that once drove you forward suddenly feel hollow. And you don't know what to do with that, because from the outside, everything looks fine. So this video is about what's actually happening when that feeling shows up. Not the cliches, not the stereotypes, but the real psychological and emotional territory of midlife that most people go through alone because nobody warned them it was coming. There are a few specific truths here that I think will land differently than what you've heard before, and the last one is the one that most people miss entirely, even the ones who've already been through this. So stay with me. The first thing that shifts in midlife, and this one catches people off guard, is the way time starts to feel. When you're young, time is this abstract, endless thing. You assume there will always be another chance, another year, another beginning. The future is just out there, waiting. But at some point, something changes in how you experience it. You stop counting years by how many you've lived and start counting by how many might be left. And that's a completely different feeling. Dreams you postponed start to feel urgent. Relationships you settled into start to feel like questions. The version of yourself you set aside to be practical, to be responsible, to meet everyone else's expectations, that version starts knocking. Time stops being theoretical and becomes personal. And that shift alone is enough to shake the foundation of a life that felt perfectly stable the day before. Here's where it gets interesting though, because for a lot of people, the timing of this feeling doesn't line up with failure. It lines up with success. You worked hard, you hit the goals, you built the life you were supposed to build, and then one day you arrive at the destination and the feeling you expected isn't there. The accomplishment is real. The fulfillment is missing. And that is deeply disorienting, because if success isn't the answer, then what was all of it for? This is the part that nobody prepares you for. We spend so much of our early lives moving towards something, a promotion, a marriage, financial security, a certain version of stability, and we assume that once we get there, we'll feel complete. But the research on this is pretty clear. Harvard's longitudinal studies on adult development, which tracked people for decades, found that external achievement alone has almost no lasting effect on how meaningful people feel their lives are. What actually matters is connection, growth, and a sense of purpose. And for a lot of people, those things got quietly deprioritized somewhere along the way. So the restlessness you feel isn't ingratitude. It's your internal compass telling you something important got left behind. And that brings us to the identity piece, which I think is the most underrated part of all of this. For years, most people build their sense of self around roles. You're the provider, the parent, the spouse, the professional, the one who holds everything together. And those roles aren't bad. They're real and they matter. But they're not the whole of who you are. The problem is that over time, the roles can start to feel like the identity. And when life starts removing them, when kids grow up and leave, when careers shift, when relationships change, you're suddenly face to face with a question you haven't had to answer in a long time. Who am I when I'm not performing any of these roles? That question can feel like falling, but it's actually the beginning of something. You're not lost. You're just meeting yourself again, maybe for the first time in decades. There's one more layer to this that almost nobody talks about openly, and I want to sit with it for a second because I think it's the piece that explains why midlife can feel like grief even when nothing has gone wrong. And that's because it is grief. Not necessarily grief for a person, but grief for the lives you didn't live, the paths you didn't take, the the versions of yourself that never had the chance to show up. The musician who became practical, the dreamer who became responsible, the person who had something they wanted to create or explore or become, and quietly set it aside because life asked something else of them. Mourning those possibilities is painful, but it's also one of the most human things there is. And the people who move through midlife with the most clarity are almost always the ones who let themselves feel that grief instead of running from it. Now here's what I want you to hold on to, because this is the part that changes how you see everything else. A midlife crisis is almost never really about wanting to be younger. It's about wanting to feel alive again. It's about reconnecting with parts of yourself that got buried under obligations and expectations and the constant pressure to be productive, to be needed, to be enough. The discomfort isn't a sign that you're failing. It's a signal that something real is trying to surface. And the second half of life, when you actually lean into that signal, offers something the first half rarely can. Perspective, clarity, the freedom that comes from knowing yourself well enough to stop pretending, the courage to stop living by someone else's definition of a good life and start building one that actually fits who you've become. If any of this is resonating with you, I'd genuinely love to hear what's coming up for you in the comments. Whether you're in the middle of this, on the other side of it, or you're watching this because someone you love is going through it, drop a thought below. These conversations matter, and honestly, you might say something that helps someone else feel less alone. And if this video found you at the right moment, the next one I'd point you to goes deeper into the identity side of this, specifically how to figure out who you actually are when all the external definitions fall away. It's worth watching back to back with this one. Here's where I want to leave you. The midlife crisis nobody warned you about isn't a crisis. It's a confrontation. Time becomes real. Success stops being enough. Identity gets stripped back to something more honest. And grief shows up for the roads not taken. All of that is hard. None of it means something is wrong with you. What it means is that you're paying attention. And the fact that you're asking, "Is this all there is?" isn't a sign that your life has gone wrong. It might be the first honest question you've asked yourself in years. The life still ahead of you doesn't have to look like the life behind you. That's not a small thing. That's the whole thing. And despite what fear might be telling you right now, it's not too late. But it won't stay that way forever. So don't wait for a better moment to start listening.